These are 5 things you can do to deliver $1 million speech. Now, what do I mean when I say $1 million speech? I mean the kind of speech where people listen to you and they immediately say, hey, I want to either listen to it again or I want to invite this person to speak at this event, that event, and you keep delivering that speech and it keeps bringing you money. So after studying the highest paid keynote speakers in the world who are not just celebrities and famous people, these are the 5 elements I found that work time and time again. Number one, when you're delivering a speech, it needs to be the type of speech that people can share to other people. So think about a viral video online. One of the things that makes it viral is that people watch it and decide, you know what, I need to share this with other people. And then they share that speech and it gets views and views and views, or share the video and it gets views, views. You look at a comedy show. Let's say you watch a comedy show and you like a comedian who does a specific bit. One of my favorite comedians, Sebastian Maniscalco, he has a bit where he talks about going on a first date, and I love it and I keep quoting it. I'm sharing that bit with other people. So when you think about a memorable speech, a speech that people can easily recommend, it has to inherently be shareable. Are you saying something that people can remember long enough to say, oh, I love when he or she did this? I want to tell my friend about it. I want to tell the next event organizer about it. So it has to have some element of that. And where does this come from? This comes from your stories. It comes from some experiences. Maybe you're doing a magic trick on stage. Maybe you have some sort of a gimmick, something that they haven't seen before, or something that stands out. Now, it's very difficult to share 10 tips on public speaking or 10 ways to be more productive and get a shareable speech, just because chances are tips and tricks they've heard before. It's not really new unless you can paint it in a different way. So that way, number one, think about, would I share this? If I heard this speech, what I want to tell other people about, would I feel like, wow, what I just experienced right now, I need other people to see it. And most of the time, speeches and keynotes, they're very informative. They're not something you particularly want to share. So that's number one. Number two, this is especially important if you're going for the type of speech that gets a standing ovation, or it's the standout speech of the day where people say, wow, that was unbelievable. I have to get up and clap for this. It's very difficult to get a standing ovation after a speech that just aims to inform. So if you came with your 10 bullet points or 5 bullet points about XYZ, you went through a lot of slides and you said, hey, I want to be as valuable as possible, and you just delivered the speech, people will feel, wow, that was actually very helpful. That was a lot of great tips and tricks. But unless you're famous, unless you've got great energy, unless you told amazing stories, which is hard to do if you're just going through bullet points, you're most likely not going to get a standing ovation. You'll have people coming up say, hey, actually, those tips were very valuable. I really enjoyed those. And I'll tell you, as someone who taught public speaking in seminars and workshops, one of the things I would hear all the time is, wow, Yasser, your tips were very practical. They were I can easily implement them, and it was very helpful. But then no one would talk about me after that. No one would share it. No one would recommend me to other people. And I couldn't really understand what the missing component is, but then I realized what it was. It was emotion. So if you want the type of speech where people feel compelled to stand up and clap, compelled to come to you and say, hey, that really touched my heart, it has to be emotional. You cannot just list things down, 10 tips, 5 tips, and imagine people come to you. So one of the stories that I tell at the end of one of my speeches is just an experience I had with a client and how much my videos changed their life. And that's when I realized that the way we speak has a huge impact on people in their lives. And then people will start standing up and clapping. But if I just said, so here are the 10 tips to become a better public speaker, hopefully this helped out, thank you very much, people would say, okay, yeah, that was pretty helpful. But they didn't really feel anything. And if you think about a singer, or if you think about a performer, when you listen to them, there's so much emotion in their singing, emotion in their theatrical performance, that you feel that emotion, and by the end of it, you just want to give the good emotion back, and that's why you stand up and you clap. So number 2 would be, you have to have a component of being emotional in some way. Make them feel something, make them laugh, make them cry. Preferably you can do both of them, but it has to have a range of emotion, and it shouldn't just be informing them the entire time. Number 3, now it's very common, but most people don't think about it. Number 3 is your speech has to be relatable, meaning I've heard many people come and deliver a speech about a topic they're very good at. So I'm an expert at content, or I'm an expert at leadership, I'm an expert at productivity. And the way they talk about it is as if they're better than you at that. So for example, they'll say, well, most people do it like this, and that's completely wrong. The way I tell my clients to do it is do X, Y, Z, and this method is wrong. The way I should do it is this. The way you should. They start lecturing you, and even if they're saying all the right things, the problem is it makes it seem like they think they're better than you. And you're just listening to somebody. Hey, here's how I did it. So, for example, I used to do these public speaking workshops, and I used to say, here's the 10 tips that you can do, 10 things you can do right now to become a better speaker right away. And I would go through all the 10 things, and I would realize that most people, they didn't care. Like, oh yeah, great tips, but I don't really want to implement it. And there wasn't a lot of trust being built, and I couldn't really understand what it was. And that changed when I started implementing a story at the start of my workshops where I would just talk about how bad I used to be and how I wasn't a very good speaker, and everything that I learned brought me to where I am today. And if they follow the tips I'm going to show them today, they're going to get better. And now they're feeling, okay, this person's not just telling me what to do, they're showing me what mistakes they made, and they're trying to help me. Then they will start to trust you. So number 3 is be relatable. How can you not sound better than them, but sound like you've had the same experience? Now, going back to talking about stories, some people think, well, I need to have this story where I climb some mountain or something terrible happened to me, and I need this amazing story where I swam across an ocean. Those stories, even though they're epic, they're not relatable. Most people will never do those things. So believe it or not, you don't need a super out there story. In fact, some of your most memorable stories are the ones that happen every day that people can relate to. So maybe you got cut off in traffic and you were really angry, or you were disappointed when you got rejected by your soulmate. Something like that is something people can relate to. So the more relatable you are, the more likely people are to trust you and buy into your message. And in the end, remember you and really trust your message and recommend it to other people. So be relatable. Start by showing how similar you are. Don't try to be special, be similar. Number 4, some sort of unique element. Now, what's a unique element? A unique element is, I've never seen this subject talked about, or I've never seen this type of demonstration around this topic. So I remember in one of the TED Talks, it was called something like, "Looks Don't Matter, I'm a Model." And the first thing she did was she started changing her outfit in the first 5 minutes of the speech. And it's something no one's ever seen before. There was another TED Talk where someone has this device and he puts it next to his throat and he starts making sounds with his throat, and he does an entire musical performance based on that. No one's ever seen that before. So when you do things like that are just different, that people have not seen before, they automatically feel like, hey, this is new. This is a refreshing take on a topic that I've heard about before. There's a brilliant TED Talk where, I think it's called How to Give a TED Talk or How to Sound Smart, something like that, where the guy his talk is about how to do a TED Talk. And he says, I'm going to start with an open point, and I'm going to give you a relatable story, and I'm going to laugh and chuckle about my mistake, and then I'm going to get really serious. I'm going to show you a chart. So he's going through what TED speakers sound like, and he's verbalizing all of that. And it's brilliant because you've never seen something like that before. Other examples can be in one of Bill Gates' TED Talk. He had a little jar of mosquitoes. So you see what I mean? It's something that you just instantly, your mind will say, wow, I've never seen that before. The part where he did X, Y, Z. For example, I have this element in my speech where I use a tennis racket to make a point. And people are usually thinking, wait, what the heck is he doing with a tennis racket? What's he going to do with that? So afterwards, I get people coming up to me and say, hey, I love the tennis racket bit. Or I had this story I had to tell about a turtle, and people are like, wow, I'll always remember that turtle story. In fact, where is that napkin? It should be around here somewhere. So those types of stories, you want people to, actually, here we go. I did this speech where I told a turtle story, and a woman came and she actually drew the turtle on a napkin and she gave it to me. She said, I will never forget that story. And so you have to tell stories or do things that people have not seen before that immediately resonate in their mind. So have a unique element. Number 5, this is especially important if you want them to feel like you're special. Special not in the way that you're better, but special as in you're different than all the other speakers. You have to bring them up to an energy level higher than they were before. So for example, if everyone's really excited and then you show up and you start talking like this, hey everyone, today we're going to talk. Now you're bringing down the energy. But if you show up and everyone's really sleepy and you're like, oh my God, today we're going to talk about this, I'm so excited, and you leave them at higher energy, now they'll remember you because you made them feel better. Now here's the tricky part. If you have an audience, and I've made this mistake many times. If you've got an audience that's very quiet and shy, and you show up, hey, what's going on, everyone? We're really excited. And then no one responds to you, and you say, okay, we got the energy up in here. It again shows that you think you're better than them, or you know better than them, and you're trying to convince them, or you're trying to bring them to your side. They just feel like, hey, this guy's trying too hard. So you have to meet them where they are in their energy. Well, hey, really excited to be here. And I know it's been a long day, but I'm going to try to make this a little interesting. And then you slowly bring the energy up, and eventually you get them so excited about the topic that they feel like, I remember when we started, we were here, and after this conversation, we're up here. So you've raised their energy. This is also very useful when you're trying to go for a big, impactful, motivational close where, let's do this, we're a champion, let's go. And you just rile up the energy, and then you leave them at the end with very, very high energy. They really, really remember you. You'll see this in a lot of motivational speeches. What I like to do is I like to leave them thinking about something. So I'll go really high energy, and then I'll drop it right at the end, and I'll ask a question. So that's what I want you to think about, because that's what your clients are thinking about. And they're like, let me think about that. And I'll just stop the speech there. So I'll leave them reflecting and questioning. So here are 5 things that you can do to deliver a $1 million speech. 5 elements you must have. Number 1, it has to be shareable. People must be able to share it, and in order to share it, they have to remember it. Number 2, it must be emotional. It should be funny. It should have some heart. It should have vulnerability in there, something where they know how important this topic is to you. It should be relatable. You shouldn't sound like you're better than everyone, but you're one of them and you're sharing from your experience. Number 4, it should have some sort of unique element or unique spin, a unique activity demonstration that they've never seen before. This could be a phrase that you say, a story that you tell, a prop that you bring, a performance that you do, something where it's immediately, oh, remember that bit? For example, if I took off my clothes and I was just standing in my underwear in the last section of my speech, everyone can easily say, oh, that bit where he took off his clothes and he was standing there in his underwear, that was weird. Now, do you want to do that? No. But is it memorable? Yes, because it's a unique element. And number 5, you want to play with energy. High energy, low energy. But you want to leave them better than where they found you. If you do those 5 things, that's how you deliver a memorable $1 million speech.